Audiophiles of the internet, my name is Adriana and today I'm here to bring you part 2 of my manga and anime recommendations. If you were unaware, a little while ago I did a recommendation video for manga and anime, especially as starting points for people who want to get into those genres and don't know where to begin. So if for some reason you missed that first video, I will link that in the description. You can check that out at your leisure. As promised, in this installment I will be talking about more like supernatural, paranormal, suspense, thriller, darker types of manga slash anime. But before we get started, I have a couple of disclaimers, so let's get to that. First of all, I'm just here to make you aware that these series exist. I'm not here to dub whether they're good or bad or pass my personal judgment on them in any way, especially with the manga and the anime that I will be mentioning in this installment, because a lot of it, in fact, a majority of it, I have not experienced myself yet. And my second and final disclaimer is just to take some of these comparisons with a grain of salt, because I'm not completely comparing two series. I'm just kind of using them as a reference point for my if you, then you recommendations. So I think that's more than enough information. Let's jump straight into the recommendations. So to start off, I'm going to be talking about a series that I've mentioned multiple times on my channel. And so the comparison I have for this series is if you enjoy the Saw franchise, then you might want to look into reading either Doubt or Judge. Doubt is a slasher horror type of series. Essentially, it's about a group of young people who are all fans of this viral video game craze that's going on in Japan. They decide to meet up in real life, and what ends up happening is they all end up getting kidnapped and then abandoned in this creepy warehouse. They wake up to a pretty big surprise, and that is that somebody is playing this very devious game with them. And within this group there is a murderer, and the people in this group have to figure out who it is before they all end up getting killed in extremely brutal ways. Judge is also written by the same author, Yoshiki Tonogai. So I have to say the premise is very similar to Doubt, but it's really intriguing. And again, this series is about a group of strangers who are kidnapped and left for dead in an abandoned courthouse. And they also come to find that somebody is again playing a really twisted game with them, and they realize that each person represents one of the 7 deadly sins. And they have a certain time frame, I think it's every hour, that they have to discover what each other's sins are and which sin they represent, and they have to decide who among them is the person that they're going to put up for death. I compared these series to Saw, and I think you can see the comparisons already. If you are familiar with the Saw franchise, I think we all know by now that these are stories about random people who get abducted and are left with terrible choices, and they're put in terrible games. And obviously these are similar in that aspect that there's somebody who is controlling these situations, and the situations are awful. If you like horror and gore and murder stories, like, these are definitely up your alley. So my next comparison is for a series that I have not yet read or watched, but it sounds really freaking cool. If you enjoy movies like Pacific Rim or Transformers, or even if you want to throw it back to the old school Power Rangers, then you might enjoy watching or reading Neon Genesis Evangelion. I've never said that out loud, so I don't know if that pronunciation is correct. That last word always tripped me up. Is it Evangelion? Evangelion? Like, what? Just to make my life easier, I will refer to this series as NGE. So from what I can gather, this series is about a world that has been invaded by these huge alien war machines called angels. So in order to fight back, humanity has developed these ginormous, high-tech, humanoid warfare machines. And from what I understand, there's a certain group of young people who are the only ones who can interface with these machines and control them, and basically those people have become humanity's hope. And I'm sure there's more to the series, but it just sounds so interesting already, doesn't it? Again, I think the comparisons here are fairly obvious. So basically, if you want to see an interaction between humans and giant fighting robots, then you should probably look into NGE. Next, we have a really fun comparison, and so that is if you enjoy the Hunger Games or Battle Royale, you might want to look into reading or watching Deadman Wonderland. Deadman Wonderland is about, I think, a middle schooler, and what happens is there's an entire classroom of students who are brutally murdered, and he is framed for the crime. As a result of that, he is sentenced to die, and he is sent to a prison which is called Deadman Wonderland, I believe. The thing about this prison is that the inmates are pitted against one another in these very violent death matches for the entertainment of the public. So I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that this series is very gory and violent and brutal, and that there's a lot of carnage and probably a lot of blood. Yet again, I feel like the comparisons here speak for themselves. So if you enjoy reading about these political and social conflicts that end up in these very drastic death games, then you might want to look into Deadman Wonderland. Next, we have another really great comparison, and so if you enjoy supernatural or books like Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendar Blake, then maybe you would like to look into watching or reading Ghost Hunt. Admittedly, I really don't know too much about this series. I believe it's about a girl and her friends who like to exchange ghost stories with one another, and apparently there's a specific abandoned school building that has a lot of paranormal buzz circulating about it, a lot of ghost stories that are set there. So I believe she and some other people go to investigate this, and I think what they find is something that's really creepy and paranormal, and I think from then on out she learns more about ghost hunting in general. That was a super informative synopsis brought to you by yours truly. Both Supernatural and Anna Dressed in Blood are about young people hunting ghosts and demons and other paranormal creatures. So bring the salt and brush up on your exorcism chance, because all of these series are very similar, I feel, on the paranormal level. For this next series, I'm gonna have to kind of tweak the comparison a little bit to make it as accurate as possible, so bear with me. Let's imagine for one glorious second that The Lord of the Flies were a sci-fi novel. Let's imagine that not only did those crazy kids have to deal with one another, but they had to deal with like strange alien supernatural creatures. That would be pretty rad, right? Well, essentially, if you do that, you'll get the Cage of Eden series. Cage of Eden is a series that centers around a plane full of students who crash land into this very mysterious island. And I believe this island is inhabited by species that I think were believed to be extinct, or maybe they're mutated series, maybe they're kind of alien, I have no idea. So obviously this island is extremely dangerous, and some of the members of this class end up being eaten alive, and some of them are set on this huge survival journey. They're just trying to make it off this island alive. I have to say that I'm killing it with these comparisons because I really don't have much to add besides the obvious, but the aspect that I'm really focused on comparing these stories with is because obviously there are children in both stories who have crash landed on mysterious islands, and theirs is a survival story. Also, now that I think about it, it also kind of reminds me of like Jurassic Park 3, because that's also about a plane full of people who crash land on an island that has species that are believed to be extinct. So there you go, there's a bonus comparison there. Anyways, those were pretty much all of the series that I had lined up for this recommendations video, but please do not hesitate to recommend me some more awesome series in the comments down below. And also, I would really love it if you guys could do me a huge favor and tell me two things. First of all, I really want to know if you guys would be interested in me doing anime wrap-ups or something like that now and again, and I would get to talk about the synopsis, my thoughts, and I would give it a rating just like a normal wrap-up. And secondly, I would really appreciate it if in the comments below you would leave me suggestions for some other kind of recommendation videos that you would like to see from me, because I definitely want to make more recommendation videos, and you can be as specific or as broad in your suggestions as you would like. But that's all I have for you today. I really hope you found this recommendations video helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.